Hello everybody, welcome to Success Defined. I'm Ben McDonald, and today I have Marc and Jolene Fondino, owners of Davidson Chiropractic, with us. A lot of people chase after other people's definitions of success, whether that be wealth, fame, or even just other people's opinions. And so today our goal is to jump into how these two have been able to define their own version of success and then align their actions and habits to work towards that. So, thanks guys for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, man.
So we're going to go through a few different parts. We're going to let everybody know kind of what your background is, how it led into where you are today, and give us a little bit more about your business and how you run it and things that set you apart. And then we'll finish with some principles or philosophies.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
So Jolene, we're going to start with you. What was the high school or elementary version of Jolene? What did that look like?
So I was, guess you can say, kind of an awkward child, and it evolved into me having some stomach troubles as a child, and they couldn't get it figured out. And then a chiropractor came into my elementary school, where my mom was the assistant principal.
Okay.
And she did spinal screenings and determined that I had a curvature in my spine, which led to going to an orthopedist and wearing a brace and all that, and just made everything even more awkward. But that eventually led up to me becoming a chiropractor as well.
So you're telling me wearing a brace in elementary school is not the best thing for it?
It was not. Yes, it was.
Yep.
No.
Was it a big confidence booster?
Definitely not.
But you at the same time got exposed extremely early to the field that you're in.
I definitely did.
So I have to imagine that that had some sort of impact that made you at an early age start thinking about the potential to get into this.
Yes,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That's interesting. Marc, what about you? What was most important to Marc Fondino in high school?
In high school? Well, geez. Well, besides wrestling and playing baseball and hanging out with my buddies around the neighborhood, come high school, then it was cars too. I probably went through 3 or 4 different cars early on. So always enjoyed health, wellness, and motor vehicles.
Sounds like such a stereotype. It's I worked out, I played sports, I hung out with friends, and I liked working on cars.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
Okay. And then, what about from your perspective? So obviously, Jolene had the chiropractor exposure from an early beginning, right? You saw the personal impact.
Yes, for sure.
What about on your end?
I actually did had a similar experience. I had wrestled. Had gotten in a match, or I don't know if I can't remember. I think it was more practice.
Okay.
Got my head thrown into the mat and felt kind of your typical burner, stinger that you hear about in football or any type of contact sport injury. Kind of hand went numb, and basically laid in bed or on a lazy boy chair for a couple days. Had a hard time even washing my hair. Every time I raised my arms up, my upper back and neck would hurt. Finally, my mom said, "Enough's enough. You've been laying here, you've been taking some ibuprofen, let's try a chiropractic." And within a couple treatments, 2, 3, 4 treatments, I was finally back doing the things I enjoyed. So that was my experience from a high school age.
Yeah, sometime in that high school time, and you were sometime within elementary school.
Elementary, yeah.
So obviously, elementary school, you're not thinking, what am I going to do for the rest of my life?
Right.
At what point did that transition into, hey, maybe this is what I want to do?
Yeah, well, I was always, I guess growing up in an Italian family, I always wanted to take care of people. I love helping people, and so that love for helping people, I wasn't sure if I wanted to help animals or babies or just anyone. And as I was seeing the chiropractor, I actually, eventually, after wearing the brace, I went to a chiropractor. And she just said, well, have you ever thought about becoming a chiropractor, helping people all the time? And that eventually evolved into an internship. She offered me a position at her place and all that. So.
And how old were you? Do you remember when that conversation?
I was 12.
Okay.
Yep.
So still really early.
Still really early.
Okay.
Yep. And I saw her for many years, and eventually she said, well, I think you'd make a really good She just kept pushing the chiropractic thing, and I was like, yeah, I mean, if I'm going to help people and, make a living doing it, why not?
Yep. I think I was either going to be a professional baseball player or the president of the United States when I was 12. So you're way ahead. You're way ahead. And then I guess I'll direct the same thing to you, because I love learning when people start getting more serious about what their careers are going to end up being. So you had the personal impact when you were in high school. Yeah. Did you, prior to that, have any idea of what you wanted to go to school for, or what you wanted to do in your life?
Well, I always told my grandfather and my parents I was going to be an eye doctor, eye surgeon. Okay. Because I had eye surgery as a young boy. Had some, strabismus, cross-eye type of issues as a baby, and I had that corrected. So I always told them I was going to, become that eye surgeon, so to speak. But as I had that experience, it shifted gears, and as I was approaching high school, probably my junior year, I thought I was going to probably pursue chiropractic. Okay. Yeah.
So I guess the theme today is just things that happen to you when you're younger. You have a dramatic impact on today.
It does. It leaves an impression on you.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of leads me to what I was going to ask both of you later. Mark, what's one type of major impact that not necessarily led you to into what you're doing today as a business standpoint, but just what's some sort of memory that you went through that impacted your life or you personally, and how did it shape you?
More
on a more personal level, just whether it led to a philosophy in life or an outlook of, hey, this is how I want to do things or lead my life, that type of standpoint.
So not necessarily when I was in my professional career, but even before that.
Yeah, anytime.
Grandparents?
Yeah, I mean, just for me, it was always, if you work hard enough, you spend enough time of doing what you want to do, what you enjoy, and not to ever give up. And just, there's going to be people around you that are always better. I was never, obviously, if you know me well enough, I was never the biggest kid. Never grew up to be the biggest adult. But you try to use my brain as much as I could, whatever heart that I had, to be the best version that I thought I could be. And I think I put myself up against people that were better than me, which in turn lifted me up and made me a better person, better professionally, better at athletics.
Yep.
And my grandfather always said, just, keep trying, and don't ever give up. So I still remember those words.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And surrounding yourself with people that push you and advance you and make you live a better, stronger life is really interesting.
Yeah, and realizing that as my younger years, I'd always try to get up to that level, meaning I'd be upset if I didn't ever achieve that level. But then as I've gotten older, to realize, hey, as long as you're doing the best you can, you're just living up to you. And you try, but hey, sometimes we reach a ceiling, but you keep trying.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Did you have something that impacted you? Same thing, more on a personal level of how you wanted to lead your life.
I would just say similar. My parents both just always instilled in me that, honestly, I could do whatever it is I want to do in life. There was no, not to hold back. Stuff was going to be challenging, and, I always did fairly well in school, so it wasn't an issue of, do I have the smarts? It was, okay, do I have the will, will? And like Mark said, just keep pushing until you get to where you want to be. Yeah,
and building the confidence in you to believe that you can do those things kind of outside your normal comfort zone.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously this is called Success Defined. Yeah. So we're taking a look at what success looks like for you guys. But before we get into what that is today, what was that for an 18, 20-year-old version of yourself? Because your thoughts and beliefs way back when you're in elementary school, high school, college, it obviously changes as you mature. So what was success for you back then? Either of you can jump in there.
Okay. Well, success for me at 18 was obviously not just graduating high school, but graduating at a high enough level as far as GPA, so you can get into a decent college, be able to take those prerequisites that you're going to need to get into potentially chiropractic school. So the sciences, the math, and all that. So for me, that was what my goal was. And basically from a close family that we were, close Italian family, I was kind of picked up every time. It was like positive reinforcement. My grandparents were always there for most of my life through high school. And, every time I did well, they always reaffirmed, me.
Okay.
Great job. You're doing well. Baseball. You're playing at a good level. So that I always really enjoyed that reinforcement. And I guess on the downside, when they passed, and I didn't have that reinforcement as much because they were no longer here. That was difficult. That was a difficult transition.
Okay.
To have all this positive affirmation. Not that my parents didn't give it to me, but I really looked up to my grandparents. They were like my second parents. And so when they passed, that was kind of a hard thing to realize, that life's not always going to lift you up and you're going to have to pick yourself up.
Yep.
But that was success for me at 18, is getting good grades, graduating school, trying to get to the baseball championship. I mean, that was success for me.
Okay, perfect. And I want to get to the same thing with you, but you hit on something I want to dig into a little bit deeper. It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of your relationship with your grandparents, it was almost external, building you up.
Yes.
What did the transition from having that support outside to then having to rely on internal motivation and self-awareness and things like that? What did that look like for you? Because that's got to be difficult for a young man to go.
It was. I floundered for a couple of years. When I lost them, I actually put the chiropractic degree on a back burner. Actually, I kind of put it away, basically put it on a shelf, and never thought I was going to touch it again. Was not able to sustain the grades in chemistry or trigonometry, math. So therefore, I went to a SAFE degree, a business administration degree for my associates. I went to a 2-year school, junior college, and got through. I didn't do great compared to what my high school grades were. I was usually an A student, probably was more like a CB student in my 2-year junior college. Just a lot of soul searching, I think, a lot of looking deep and realizing that my grandparents would want more from me.
Yeah.
Took a little pity party for a while, just feeling sorry for myself, angry that why did they leave? Not that they had a choice,
Right.
They didn't choose, obviously, to die. But realizing then they would want more from me.
Okay.
And so grades started to improve. I transferred to a 4-year school, and I transferred to a sport management degree. So it kind of took the business administration degree, but then kind of got back into the exercise science. So it was kind of like geared at getting you prepared for a corporate wellness program.
Okay.
A lot of companies will hire wellness professionals to kind of help their employees be healthier, to cut back on healthcare costs. So that was what I was gearing up for. Grades started improving. Starting to get A's again and B's, and so that book that I had put on the shelf about becoming a chiropractor, said, geez, I'm kind of enjoying this learning process again. Why don't we start doubling up and taking the organic chem, the physics, and I kind of packed that all in summers, summer programs up in my 4-year degree school up in New Hampshire, and got back on track to go to chiropractic college. So
really interesting.
It did make a turn.
Yeah.
Took a little while to turn the boat, but we finally turned it.
The journey's never a straight line, right? That's interesting. So let's go to success for you as a teenager or just starting college, that kind of range. What was your definition of success back then?
The definition of it. Why do I have to follow you?
You can lead with the next one. How about that?
Just be you.
So it was success for me at 18. Man, just getting through school, making sure my car was filled with gas. I mean, honestly, I can't even at 18. My dad had a severe injury as a police officer in YPD, and he had a brain trauma. So at 18, I was 14 when it happened, so it was 4 years into it. So I was still living at home, and my dad was he spent a year in the hospital trying to learn how to walk and talk and all that again. So he was at home and just trying to, make sure. So his personality was a lot different after the injury, and it was a tough transition for the family. So I remember just trying to be a peacemaker at 18, trying not to, there was enough. My mom was going through enough with my dad.
Yeah, so not rock the boat.
Just not rocking the boat, exactly. Just getting through college. I ended up with a full scholarship to college, and that made my parents happy. So just not disappointing, and just trying to stay on track. I think I knew I wanted to be, again, help people, but I think I was not sure if I wanted to be a medical doctor or, I just wanted to be a doctor of some sort. So I was studying for the MCAT and, going through. So just real, school focused and, trying to keep the peace at home.
Yeah.
That was my thing.
So let's transition now out of kind of your background and past and start going into the business side of things. So first off, and I want to hit on this a lot, the stereotype of couples running a business together is obviously extremely difficult, right? You hear a lot of horror stories about it. So I want to make sure that we focus a lot on that, because I'm sure listeners are and viewers, there are people in that situation, whether they want to start a venture together or they're in the midst of it and they're out at sea and they're trying to figure out where to go.
Sure.
So where did you two meet, and talk to me a little bit about how that relationship started?
Would you like to lead?
No, you can go ahead.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. I want to have you
I'll
have the
just
first opportunity.
ad-lib and correct you as you go along.
So we met in Seneca Falls, which is a town between Syracuse and Rochester, and that's where the chiropractic college was. And I believe it was 1998 we met at the college's gym.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much been together ever since. So what's that? 20 years almost that we've been coming up. Yeah. So that's kind of where we met,
and then so you were together, and then you guys graduate from chiropractic school, and then start to go into your career. So obviously you didn't jump day one. We had talked about this, about you didn't jump right away into owning a business and running it yourselves. So you worked for other people prior, is that right?
Yes.
And what were some of the things that you learned just at the very beginning? Because when you jump into a career at first, you think you know everything until you get there on day one, and then you realize you really don't. So what are some of those things that led you to success as you then transitioned into owning your own companies?
I think I realized that I always came out very humble, and that's kind of, I think, one of my strengths is just, you don't know anything. You don't know anything. It takes time, and even when you think you know something, things change so much. But working for those people made me realize, I think, keeping things simple is the best.
Simple, you mean in how you're working with your clients and making sure that it's on a level that they understand?
Yeah, simple, that, and also try not to get too complicated, adding too many things, too many moving parts, keeping your systems efficient and simple. A lot of times you can get pretty complicated and they can bog you down as far as how long it takes you to get through different things. I learned, obviously, what I wanted to do clinically and what I didn't, how I wanted to treat people, how I didn't want to treat people. I knew I didn't want a clinic or an office that was just pumping people through. That's, meaning you see that in the medical profession nowadays. You see it in a lot of healthcare, dictated a lot of times by insurance. The insurance model's changed over the years, over the past 10, 15, 20 years. We've seen now people with higher deductibles. They're paying more of the cost of the healthcare, but I want them to feel like they're getting healthcare. I don't want them to feel like they're just getting a pat on the back or a Band-Aid and then sending them off on their way. I want them to feel like they're getting treated and they're getting results.
Yeah, and it's more about the the long-term relationship than it is just, well, you said Band-Aid, which is probably the best word. You're not just putting a Band-Aid on something. You're learning about them, developing the relationship, and being able to serve them so they benefit for the long term.
I think we talked. It's not so much transactional anymore. Like you said, more relationship building, and that's what I enjoy. I enjoy developing those relationships. I enjoy seeing the lights come on in their mind when they kind of, it makes sense to them what we're doing, and we try to explain not just the what but the why. I think that's important.
Okay, great. So then, Jolene, you had a couple positions prior to you guys running your own company, and Mark, you had 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So, Jolene, can you talk about that transition of being an employee to being an employer? Because it's a really interesting story, and a lot of the people listening and watching, there's a lot of people that never went through an acquisition of a company on either side, buying or selling.
Yes.
And I was on the selling side on my first company, so I saw that. But hearing it from the acquisition side and the situation you were in, I think is a great story. So can you jump into that, and you guys can kind of go from there?
Sure. So I worked in New York for the chiropractor that treated me. I worked for her for a couple years until we got engaged, and then we came down here. And actually, while I was up there, I interviewed with another position in Lincolnton, and I did get that position as an associate there. And he was a chiropractor who was in business 15, 17 years, something in that range.
Yep.
And it was my job in his office to build, my own personal clientele and go out and market and do my own thing, which is hard. I mean, it's tough to go into an office that's been there 20 years and expect people to see somebody brand new, especially somebody from a whole different state. So I ended up, pounded the pavement and did my thing and worked to, I think I was seeing about 115 patient visits a week inside his office. Yep. And then he would send me to seminars, and I would learn that I was the $1 million associate to him, and I kind of snuck in I had my own seminar as an associate, and then I would peek into his room where the owners were had their own seminar, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to be in that room.
I
think I'm done with being the $1 million associate.
Okay.
So, but I did. I ended up where Mark was working. He asked me to come. That doctor that owned that practice asked me or invited me to do the marketing at his office.
We had started, or not me, but the doctor I worked for had started a multidisciplinary clinic. So he had it was him. He was a chiropractor, but he was doing the more managerial role. He had hired a medical doctor. He had hired an athletic trainer to do the rehab. He had me as one of the chiropractors, and he really wanted Jolene to again help with the marketing, to help. But also to see patients as she was recruiting. And so I said, we need a job.
Right. And were you guys still engaged at that point? Were you married?
That's a good point.
We were just
married?
about to buy the condo, so we must have been.
I forget if we were. I think we got married. Maybe married that June.
Okay, so right on the cusp.
Right on the cusp of getting married.
Everything happened all at once for us.
Getting a condo, buying a condo, being newly married in June, and this was around my birthday in April. So, but yeah, so she.
And it was a tough choice for us because I was doing fairly well at that other clinic, but he promised us that he would get us right.
You'd almost get salary would be right there, in line, and then it would just grow from there. But so yeah, you came over, and within I forget if it was within 3 months.
Well, he remodeled his office, changed everything, and he bit off more than he could.
He did a little too quickly. That's all. So yeah, the overhead was getting too immense, and so he came to. I wasn't happy. I was actually getting a little burnt out. I was looking to get back into becoming a personal trainer again. I just wanted to get out of it for a little while.
Just something to escape.
I just wanted to I was kind of burnt out from working for 3 or 4 other people, not quite finding the practice I was looking for as far as how I wanted to practice and how I wanted to treat people. That was the main thing.
Okay.
So I knew he was going to call me in to let me go, But he
because he bit off more
More
than he could chew.
chew.
We knew the buzz was in the office.
that, you know,
The
and
banks were calling. I mean, it was very obvious.
Yep.
So when he brought us both in, I said, he said, I got to talk to you guys about something. I said, I know, Paul. I said, I want to, if you need to let anybody go, please let it be me. I said, Jolene's doing a great job with the marketing. She's really working hard. I said, I'm not really in it. I want to change gears right now. He goes, no, you don't understand. I need to let you both go. So, with that being said, I basically kind of, I wanted to buy some time. So I asked him, I said, listen, I know big companies will sometimes do a kind of a cut across the board, meaning cut, payroll across the board.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, but I said, if you could do anything like that where, I don't mind taking a cut, but if you could kind of...
To give you time to figure out
what we want to do, I said...
Because it's both of you, see, right? Just getting married, it's not like you had one of you at one place with an income and you're losing one income. It's going from 2 full-time employees to both of you are looking for something else.
Right.
Absolutely.
At the same time.
Yeah.
So I asked him nicely.
Fun time for newlyweds.
It
That's
sure
good.
was.
No stress.
No stress.
So I don't know, I pled my case, and he's like, let me think about it.
Yeah.
So the next day he said, we're going to do a 20% cut across all the payroll, something like that. I said,
For a temporary period.
yeah, he's I can give you another, maybe 3 months to see, if we can turn it around.
And at this time, we were going to close on a condo in Davidson.
Okay.
And we lived, where did we live? Oh, that's the condo we lived in, right?
Yeah.
We rented that for a little bit?
Yeah,
Is
we
that
did
right?
a
Buyback or
lease option to
lease
own.
option.
Yeah.
And so I knew the gentleman. The gentleman was an older gentleman, great guy, and he lived right below me. And I had rented this condo from him for the past year, and it was time to buy. And we still had our W-2, so we could still buy it. And I said to him, after we closed, shortly after, the next day, I said, I know, you own, I think you own these condos outright, correct? He goes, yeah. He goes, there was no mortgage on either one of them. Yep. He was, probably in his late 60s, early 70s. I said, listen, Jolene and I have an opportunity to buy a chiropractic office here in Davidson.
Okay.
And I said, I've gone to the SBA. I've got $150,000 in student loans. I said, they're not really running to give me any money. I don't understand why.
Nobody, yeah. They
Yep.
just laughed at us.
So I said, would you be interested in lending, me some money?
Mm-hmm.
We knew him less than a year.
Less than
or
a
just
year.
about a year.
Wow.
And he said, yeah, how much you need? Well, I said, long story. Anyway, he lent me $25,000. Okay. The purchase of the practice was $60,000 maybe.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about the practice that we were looking to buy was we used to, because we lived in Davidson, I'm like, it would be so great to own this practice. And I would just drive up to the window of Davidson Chiropractic and peek in. And the owner was, we went to school with her up in New York.
Oh, really? Okay.
So then, I don't know how it all happened, but she ended up having a child with special needs. And she heard that we were leaving the practice in Huntersville or getting let go. And she called that office and said, I have an opportunity for you guys.
Wow.
And that's the part that always blows my mind. It just happened to be the practice I always wanted. And it was a husband-wife team, and we were a husband-wife team. We practiced the same because we went to the same college.
School. Yep.
Wow.
So that's what led us to, okay, now how do we get the money?
How do we get the funding for this?
Yeah, this sounds fantastic. It sounds like a really good fit, but then how do you actually make it happen with $150,000 of student loans and you're losing your current income?
Exactly.
Yep.
So I ended up getting 3 different private investors to help fund it. One was the gentleman who owned the condo.
And that was basically half. It was just under half of what
he gave us $25,000. He said, let's just do a balloon payment at the end of, if you need more time, fine, just pay me 8% interest. Dr. Park was a medical doctor who since passed. He was a medical doctor. He had worked at that clinic that we were getting let go from.
Yeah.
I had met him he was Korean, from South Korea. I can still hear his voice. We met at a Chinese restaurant, and I said to Ty, Ty, there's a clinic I'd like to purchase. I said, would you mind be interested in investing? I knew him less than a year too.
Yeah, probably not mind. Would you?
Right.
Would you be
Would you
interested?
be interested? But yeah, would you be interested? And he said, well, how much you need? I said, I need $65,000 for the purchase price, but I probably need about $20,000 of like living expenses for a few months.
Okay.
Till the accounts receivable start coming in.
Yeah.
He goes, well, I can do $40,000. $40,000, okay. And I can remember him taking his Bank of America checkbook and in the Chinese restaurant and just writing me a check for $40,000. And I printed up a little promissory note. And then I had one other chiropractor friend do the same thing. She had lent us $20,000.
Okay.
And she goes, "What's everybody else interest rate giving?" I said, "About 8%." She goes, "That's fine." She goes, "Do a 3-year term." And so she wrote us a $20,000 check, and then within 3 years I paid everybody back, and then we bought the practice.
Yeah. And so you had set up all 3 of those deals for investors. Not to give up equity, but almost just a loan standpoint.
Right, just
so
a
that
loan.
way, long term, you could keep all the equity in the company.
Right.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. But also, that doesn't just happen,
Right.
right? You don't just have somebody pull out a checkbook and write you a check for $25,000, $40,000, whatever it is for all those points.
I think
so. It goes back to the relationship, not just with your business. But both of you, it sounds like you have focused on relationships throughout your entire life.
Yeah, I think the one thing that they always told us is they knew the type of people we were.
Yeah.
And they knew I would not let that, I would not be delinquent on that loan.
Right.
Whatever it took, I was going to get it. If it took a little extra time, it took a little extra time, but I made an important point to try to pay it off even sooner. Because I appreciated their confidence in us and trust in us. And so... That was probably one of the highlights of me starting my career.
Yeah,
absolutely.
To have that trust that they believed in us.
Absolutely. So Jolene, were you a part of all those conversations? Was it Mark doing the one-on-one conversation? What did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I was like, I could not imagine somebody who knew us less than a year or just about a year just writing a check for $25,000. And it was never even, he just went and knocked on the door downstairs. Yeah. I'm just going to go do it. And
so tell me tell me your response, because this is really interesting. Tell me your response when Mark comes to you and is like, hey, this is a possibility. It's actually going to happen.
Yeah, part of me was absolutely like, oh my gosh, all these people how are we going to pay them back? Like that was the initial reaction.
The fear of this is reality now.
Yes. He never failed. He has yet to fail at anything since I've known him. So I just had to have faith and confidence, and again, just work at being the best that we can be, and know that was going to be that was going to do it for us.
Yeah, I love it. So let's fast forward a little bit more now, and you guys are running the company together, and this is what I alluded to earlier. I want to hear what it's like, both positive and negative, running a company as a couple. So what's been your experience? Because you've been doing this for a while now. You've obviously, there's ups and downs with every type of business. So let people know a little bit into that aspect of running the business together.
Well, I think it's a little more complicated when there are 2 professionals and they each kind of have their own foundation that they started on, because there's different philosophies in chiropractic. So he was a sports injury and I just happened to have a scoliosis, a genetic issue. So but I think we made it work. I did most of the administrative, the marketing kind of stuff, and he did most of the treating in the beginning especially. And then we got to a point where we had an employee, and we both did our own kind of treating, and we had our separate patients, and we had some patients that would see either one of us. But other than it's been it's been 17 years.
We're approaching. Took over in May of 2003, so approaching 15 years.
Yeah, 15 this year.
15 years this year. I don't know where the time went, Ben.
Yep.
I think for us, for me, the benefits is, geez, I mean, we do get to. I wouldn't change it, even though to know I've spent, even though we've been married now, 16 years coming up, we've probably spent about 30 years together because we're basically doubling the amount of time. Like, we don't have an 8-hour day. We're not with each other.
True.
Try not to take it for granted. That's one thing I try to do, is not take it for granted. As much as it becomes so, not mundane, but habitual that we see each other, I don't want to take that for granted because I do enjoy seeing her. It's very comforting to know she's got my, no pun intended, got my back.
Yeah.
She's always there to bail me out if I need something. I mean,
And try not to let it consume us. So when we get home,
I was just going to ask that when you come home from work, are you able to turn it off? Are you able, or are you guys after dinner and your son goes to bed talking about business all night long?
I think Alec helps us turn it off because we have a new focus, right, when we come home. So we have a new focus. So Alec helps kind of lighten the load. The kid will make you laugh nonstop. But yeah, I think that he takes the load off and allows us to kind of just be Jolene and Mark again, and be a parent and just enjoy time with him, reading to him. But in the office, I guess, to answer your question, I mean, I wouldn't change anything. The difficult time is because I'm, quote, being in the doctor role. Sometimes if I had a front desk, if it wasn't Jolene, I might suggest certain things.
Okay.
And I think it could come across to a spouse that you're trying to tell them what to do when it would
versus working together and just making some sort of suggestion from an outside perspective,
like you would if you had anybody at the front desk or doing that type. So that's kind of, you don't want to be thought of by your spouse as bossy or telling what to do. You're trying to make suggestions of how you'd have anybody do that front desk job.
Okay. Yeah.
And she has got suggestions for me of how I should practice.
Right.
So
Of course. At the very beginning of starting this company, what was the process of deciding the roles, the responsibilities, or was it kind of trial by fire?
deciding the roles. That's interesting. Well, Mark kind of is opposed to answering the phone, so
Okay.
that kind of put me in the position a little bit.
And then, but
Pushed
your
me
background
that way.
also had that marketing experience, whereas
Right.
it doesn't sound like
True.
yours did.
No, that's not playing into my strengths. I mean,
Okay.
I'm more of an educator. Once a
Yeah.
patient's with me, I'm not so
Okay.
much of handling questions or
Yep.
calls, insurance type
And it
things.
sounds like you're more comfortable on that end,
Yes.
and you thrive in that type of role.
Yes.
And just from what you were saying with that first position where you did that and you were the $1 million employee or
Right.
$1 million associate, that you were able to thrive in that type of situation.
That's true.
So was it an actual sit down and say, hey, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm good at, or was it just kind of go?
I was okay. I just knew that was going to be my focus.
Okay.
I was okay with that. I mean, not that I enjoy treating patients, but I was okay. I knew he was the better communicator, and in our field, that's super important.
Yep. And it's the same thing with what I do, right? You can't talk over people's heads, or there's not going to be a comfort level at any point, and you're not going to be able to develop that relationship. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing in what you're doing. If you can communicate what's going on and why, you get buy-in, you can empower your clients, things like that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you were, and we'll start with you this time, so you don't have to follow Mark for this one. If you were to say one thing to somebody, a couple, a spouse or two spouses, that they're about to start a company together, what's one piece of advice that you would give them?
One piece of advice, and I think it would be know when to turn it off. I mean, work hard, like you're, throughout the day, your 8-hour day, whatever it is, but then know when you get home, you need to be able to turn it off and be a couple again. And that's, I think that
helps keep the sanity in the relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Interesting. What about you?
I think taking the time to still do things outside of work, like whether it be going out for a date night, out to dinner. mean, that's my favorite thing to do, is go out to dinner, go to a movie every now and then, just spend that kind of quiet time to talk about other things other than work.
Okay.
And even with a child, that even then adds into time away from your spouse, meaning as far as quality time versus just being with them. So I think having that, taking time out to go out on a date.
Perfect. No, I like that. Because a lot of that goes just back to making sure that you guys put your relationship at the forefront as well. Because otherwise the business can consume you. What it sounds a lot like.
Yes.
Okay.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, so let's pivot towards the last section of the podcast and the show. I want to dive into your principles, your philosophies a little bit. So Mark, we're going to start with you this time.
Okay.
All right, we'll give Jolene a little bit more time to think about this one. One thing that I focus a lot on personally is having 3 pillars in my life. And what I mean by that is having 3 things that are just, they're my main focus. They're what my version of success is, right? So if I'm focusing on these things, it means I'm doing what I think is successful in my life. So for me, that means I want to be focusing on my family, my health, and my business. And if I'm doing one of those 3 things or something within those categories, I feel good that I'm moving forward and growing as a person. So if you had to pick 3, and that's an arbitrary number, so it could be 2, it could be 4.
Sure.
If you had to pick pillars in your life, what does that look like for you?
Well, I think I hate to piggyback off you, Ben, but
I shouldn't have said my 3.
But no, family.
Okay.
Obviously, Jolene and my son Alec, and my mom and dad. They're real close to me, so I enjoy spending time with them. Because I think the main thing is you never know how much time you have here on this earth, and I want to make the most of it. And sometimes business can kind of take you away from that. You forget what's important. Health, as you know, enjoy the CrossFit community.
Right. Yeah, we work out together.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, so that's how we first met. So obviously your health and working out is important to both
very
of you.
important, because also to me it reflects on who I'm working with in my business. I don't know about anybody who's been to a doctor before, but if I have a patient coming to me, or if I'm a patient going to a doctor, I like to see the doctors in relatively good shape.
Almost like you're an example.
Yeah, you need. I think
you're living what you preach.
Living what I preach. I wouldn't ask somebody to do. If I want people to move well, I wouldn't do something that I wouldn't be comfortable having them do.
Okay.
So health is very important, and then maybe a third thing, growth. And I think you always want to learn new things. Never want to be stagnant. I want to learn more things clinically. I want to see what's the best evidence of the day that's showing that we should do for patients with musculoskeletal type pain. I want to know how to improve. You talked about your business. How can I better serve or get my message out to people so that we can help save them from unneeded back surgeries, unneeded opioid medication that we hear a lot about in the news now. So I always want to, how about new marketing tactics, using social media, YouTube, different types of things. So I always like to learn more about how to grow. It could be spiritually, some weeks or some days, reading the Bible. I want to grow clinically and grow from a business owner perspective. So those are the 3 main pillars, I think.
I like that. And the third one is it's all encompassing, right? It's you want to keep improving in everything in your life and honing your craft, but also honing yourself on a personal level. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so you were able to have a little time to think. So
it's very similar.
Okay.
So family for sure.
And you were talking earlier, it sounds like that's always been really relevant in your life.
Always.
So, okay.
Yes. And Alec is just, he brings us, so much joy. So that would be first, family. Second, I would say health as well. We believe in practicing what we preach. yeah, I mean, and that just isn't just physical health, mental health, you know, staying.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring that up as well, because people hear health and they think physically, they think what's on the exterior, but really good point to say it's not just the physical.
It really isn't. And staying strong for Alec, and, you know, just don't get burdened with the small things.
Okay.
And then third, I would probably say, pretty important to me, which I need to get better at, is stepping outside your comfort zone.
Okay.
Kind of growth. In order to grow, you need to step outside your comfort zone. Yeah, I think those would be our three, my three.
Yep. And a lot of crossover, which makes sense
Sure.
because you guys, you're aligned, right? A lot of what you are talking about, you're living every day, and so there's going to be a lot of crossover, so that makes perfect sense. Okay, so the second kind of principal question with your son, and we'll start with you this time.
Okay.
If you could leave only one or two principles or words of wisdom to your son, what would that be? What would those lessons be for him?
For him, I would say find something that makes you happy, and you know, just grow with that. You know, whatever it is that makes you happy is really what you should turn into you should turn into your career.
Okay.
Like mine was, you know, getting people better and helping people, and I turned that into my career. So I think just, you know, because happiness is everything, and you know, I feel like if you're not happy doing what you're doing, you'll never succeed.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. What about for you? One or two principles, life lessons that you'd want to leave with them?
I think for Alec, always be willing to try new things. You know, I think a lot of people have opinions of certain things, even if you already think that it's not going to work for you, or it doesn't make sense. You can always get something out of going to an event, going to a certain sport, and trying new things, because you don't know what you'll hear. It might totally go against what you're thinking. So try new things. Be willing to try new things, and then once you don't ever give up. You know, don't. That was a big thing in part of me at a young age. Don't ever give up. Especially if you, like Jolene said, if you find something you enjoy, don't give up. You know, keep pushing forward.
Nice. I like that. Okay, so final two. We're nearing the end
All
here.
right.
Okay.
All right. So what's one thing, and either of you can start with this one, but what's one thing that you see happening today that you would want to change or stop? And it could be anything. It doesn't need to be related to your business, but it certainly can be.
One thing I could change. Oh, geez. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just healthcare in general. I don't know, just maybe because I like to see for somehow, some way, I see it on both sides of the spectrum, as a consumer of healthcare and as a provider of healthcare.
Right.
I've talked to more and more doctors nowadays, medical doctors, that are saying they're ready to get out of the profession. They're not producing enough internists, medical doctors, and their workload is just unbelievable. So I don't know if we're getting the right health care today that we should be coming, in America. Doctors are working 80 hours a week to not just see patients, but to complete documentation for that. And patients are paying a good portion of this now with these deductibles, high deductible plans, $10,000 deductibles, $15,000 deductibles, and the premiums are just through the roof. They're paying $1,000 to $1,500 a month. It's costing people $12,000 to $18,000 a year just for benefits, with really no medical benefit, meaning you're coming out of pocket the first $10,000, $15,000. So I'm afraid people aren't going to get the care that they need. Not so much even with what we do, but God forbid, checks for cancer, whether it be mammograms, colonoscopies for colon cancer, just you name it. I'm afraid people are going to be putting off care that they need, and actually I'm afraid it's going to kill us prematurely.
Right.
So that's the thing I hope we can see some change going forward.
Yep.
just for our whole society.
Yeah, and you've got the unique perspective of being on both sides of the table
yeah.
there. Yeah, so you get to see it on both sides. What about you? What's one thing that you see going on that you'd want to change today?
I think I'll speak for myself. One of my biggest pet peeves is people not taking responsibility for whatever it is. Responsibility for their health, or responsibility for your teenager who's acting up, or as a parent. Yeah. I just think people need to be more willing to accept, that blame, and say they're sorry more often, and the whole just be kinder to people, and
just taking responsibility for themselves.
Yes, take responsibility.
Okay.
And that's so important to pass on to your children.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and that goes back to self-awareness also. If you're self-aware and you're comfortable with yourself, then you're going to be able to take responsibility for yourself, because you can identify what's going on, and that's where people continue to improve, because they're willing to take a look at that.
Yes.
Okay.
Like an inner reflection, right?
That's right. That's right. The whole external versus internal.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. Last one. We'll end with this because it's the name of the show. For both of you, what is your definition of success today? And then you can follow up, if you want, of a couple things that you're doing, actions, habits, things like that, to help you lead a life that's working towards your own version of success.
What's my definition of success today? My definition of success today is basically educating people in the community about what we can offer, what we can do to help them. Help them avoid opioids, help them avoid spinal surgeries, help them avoid life of dysfunction, meaning not just pain. I think what brings people to us is pain, but ultimately it's not being able to play with your grandson.
Right.
It's not being able to go enjoy your greatest workout. Those are, that to me, that's success. Just educating. Helping people reach their goals helps me reach my goals. It does me no good to try to get somebody to do something if they don't understand why they're doing it.
Yep.
Okay, so when they get it, everything else falls into place.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing to kind of reach those goals, I'm a morning person. I rise early, probably about 4:30 in the morning. I'm up. That's when I have my quiet time. I kind of plan out my day. These are the things I want to accomplish, by 5 p.m. today. So that's kind of one of the things I do to kind of get prepared, and what I'm doing to kind of reach my goals. And then I need to implement it. I need to have
right. Plans don't mean anything unless you follow through.
Follow through. And then did I complete it? What I wanted to do?
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is your definition of success is helping others reach their success, whether they define it that way or not. Mm-hmm. You're right. The grandparent that can't pick up their grandchild because they can't bend down, or things like that. You're helping them live lives that are more fulfilling.
Right.
Yes.
And so that's really interesting.
So true.
Okay, same to you. What is your definition of success?
So I guess, I don't know, maybe this is a mom thing, but being able to go home at night and feel grateful for the day, and just lay my head down on the pillow at night and be like, okay, we made it through, and just like a day to day. Alec is doing great in school, the office. So just that things are going smoothly, and every day is a fresh start, and at the end of the day we just reflect and say, okay, well, it was a good day, and just take it day by day. And again, being happy, fulfilled at the end of the day, that kind of thing.
It's perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
We're going to put in the show notes, your website, things like that, but anything else that you want to leave the viewers with, or listeners, or you want them just to be able to have access to you if they ever have any questions or need anything?
No, I mean, they can reach me if anybody has any questions. They can reach me at doc41075@yahoo.com.
Yep.
That's a good email address.
Perfect. And
If
we'll
they have any
put that in the
questions.
show notes too.
If they have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
That's
But
great.
Other than that,
Perfect. Okay. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed.
hey, thanks, Ben.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it.